Welcome, welcome. I'm so excited today to bring you this little concept of tops. And the reason being is because, I always say I give you the know-how and it's your job to take it to another level. This is such a great example of that. So as you know, last weekend I was in a workshop and it was just so fun to be with you all again. Not a big workshop, obviously because of the virus, but the quality was just incredible. Anyway, so I've always said to you many times that I get so much inspiration from you, and it's so true. I mean, I just came back energized and recharged, and it was just wonderful. So for the ladies that were there, thank you. It was amazing on many, many levels. But one of the ladies, Monica, had on a blouse, and she is just a great purveyor of fashion. She just has always been, and she's a beautiful woman. Anyway, so one of the things she had on was what I'm going to show you. And yet she probably will look at that and say, that's the same. I wanted to pare it down. I wanted to make it easy. I wanted to make it as simple as possible. And then if you wanted to, you could take it to another level. So let me explain all that. First, I'm going to show you, because I know I did it in dark, but I love the fabric and the fabric was perfect for it. So I chose the fabric and I thought I'll show it through pictures for you. So we're going to look at this first picture and you're going to see a close-up of the front of my top. This is a knit. What I'm using is fabric 3418. It's an ITY, but it's not a typical, I don't know. I love it. It's kind of like a lacy. I like both sides, even though I think I might be using the wrong side, but again, I loved it. So if you look at this close up, you can see that what's happening here is there's like a ruffle down the front, okay? But it's a whole nother layer. There's 2 layers in the front. The pattern that I'm using is 195, but first I want to talk about the fabric just for a little bit more. I want something with a great drape and something that I like both sides. So if you notice, I picked that up and you can see it's just got great drape down there, but it's also very light and you can see through it. Like I said, I'm not even sure which side is right. So anyway, there are 2 layers that are created. Now, this original top that I'm talking about was a sheer. So done in a beautiful sheer, 2 layers in the front, 1 layer in the back. And it was a sheer woven. So the sleeves have to be done differently. They have to be done like a blouse sleeve. The whole thing was a blouse, not a knit top like what I'm showing you. Again, I wanted to simplify it to show you the concepts and then take you through the sheer process so that you could do that as well. All right, so I wanted to show you, the next picture is the side seam. And so what you can do is it comes around to the side, so it's only the front, that's the second layer. I imagine you could do the back. And if you notice, it comes above the hem. So what I did is I lengthened the top, but not the overlay. And I'll show you that in a minute. The next picture I want to show you is a close-up of the neckline. And the reason being is what's holding this to the middle is something, either a band. I used fold over elastic, as you can see. And as you can see in that photo, the ruffle comes right to the center and then it's released. It kind of just slips out of the band is what I did with it. And then it comes down to make this ruffle, and there's a zillion ways the ruffle can manifest itself. Okay, so let's take a look at the pattern work now that we've got that base information down. I started this photo, we'll show it all to you. If you can see, I extended this 8 inches beyond center front. So I literally just took the front piece to the sweater set, because there's only 3 pieces. So you got your front, your back, and your sleeve. So I took the front piece, this is a second layer now, I extended it out 8 inches, and I just took a curve, it doesn't matter the curve, just curve it around to the bottom. And then of course when you have those 2 and they're held to the center, then they'll create the ruffle down the front. Notice that I made the top longer than the ruffle, because you could do it the same, but I wanted the ruffle to visually see that it's a second layer, which means we could do a sheer on top of a different color. There's so many variables and so much fun that you could have with this idea, and that's really what I always look for, is just something different that's easy and quick and yet gives you such a variety of fabrics to use. I thought about using a solid knit everywhere and just a sheer layer in the front. But again, my job, your job. Okay, so when I started sewing, so I cut the pieces, I added length to the front, I added length to the back. Because I was going to do fold over elastic, I reduced the neck edge, and you can see on that drawing, I reduced the neck edge a little bit front and back, because if you take the base neck which has a seam allowance, and then put the fold over elastic on top of that, the neckline will become too closed in. So you want to pull it away and then put the fold over elastic on so that it sits right at the base of your neck, which is what I wanted. You certainly could lower it. It could go into a V-neck if you wanted. You could do all kinds of things with that. Remember, my job, your job. Okay, so next then, after the pattern work, you see just a little bit. You've got 2 fronts, the back. I used 2 yards. The fabric I used is 3418. Wonderful. It's a black and red. Just light, lacy, pretty for spring and summer. 3418, I used 2 yards. It's possible you need a little bit more, just FYI. Let's go to sewing. The first thing I did was I wanted a light edge to the knit. You could probably leave no finish. You could probably just leave it off and not finish it at all. I decided to do a rolled edge. There's so many decorative stitches on your sewing machine that you could use that would be fun. But so I finished the neck edge and I finished the front. That was my first sewing step. The actual front, keep in mind, it has French darts. You cannot see them. I mean, you just cannot see them. I'll show you on the inside so that you can see them. But anyway, you can't see them. And so I did the French darts on the front and then just assembled it exactly like normal. Keep in mind that when you do the shoulder seams, and of course, this, you've got 2 layers in here as opposed to just the one. Okay, so easy and quick. Let's shift for just a minute now if I wanted to do a shear. Because when I was looking at the blouse Monica had and talking about pros and cons, again, the shear had 2 layers in the front. The back did not. So the back was sheer. She said, can you see through it? I said, no, you can't. You can kind of see, but you can't really see. So it was a good shear. Some shears are more transparent than others. And so some shears, it would be a problem. But I took one of our shears. This is fabric 3407. 3407. So you can kind of look at it. And I wanted to show you fusible interfacing with shears because I said to her, you could just fuse the back of that, and fusible on shears makes a shear non-shear, but still brings out the beauty of the color of the shear. So I wanted to just kind of talk about that for just a minute. In the middle, you see the fabric itself, just all by itself. And I'm holding it up so you can just see the differences of light. Then what I did in the back is I put white behind here, and you notice that it lightens the shear. And I put black interfacing over here, and it darkens the shear. Now this is a black tricot fusible knit. We have it on the site under interfacing, but it has so many uses. But for using shears to make them non-shear is a very common one. And I learned this from a designer years ago, 20 years ago or so, and it's a beautiful effect, especially exactly like that, where you're taking the front, you've got 2 layers, the back, the sleeve you want to be sheer, but the back is an issue and there's nothing back there. You can add a layer fusible just on the back side and it really makes a difference. My only suggestion would be to you is to don't always put light under light and dark under dark. Do a little test swatch to see the differences that it makes when you use different colors. In this case, I definitely like the black. I'm not trying to convince you that I don't or to go to the white, but I do want you to see the differences that that fusible makes to the actual original fabric. Okay, so you're ready. You have everything you need. If you're doing a sheer, and I think it was beautiful. Her blouse was a sheer. Just keep in mind that there has to be something at the neck edge, and it could be a collar. You could use 600 classic blouse, buttons up the front, and the ruffle comes right to the front, and the collar would hold that in place, or the front facing would hold it in place, and then this would the lace or the ruffle itself would ruffle on each side of that front tab. That's a great option and a very easy option. So I think it's just a fun base idea that I'm hoping that you'll really have a great time with and really enjoy and come out with something so beautiful that you just love it. Happy sewing from Silhouette Patterns.